The 7-year-old looked up at me from the couch and said very quietly, "He's probably awake by now." I didn't know what she meant. I told myself it was just kid talk. I was wrong. My name is Danny. I was 19 that fall, working part-time at a Lowe's outside Morgantown, West Virginia. I picked up babysitting jobs on the side to cover gas money. A coworker named Pris had recommended me to family in her neighborhood, the Hallorans. She said they were good people, paid on time, easy kids. The drive out was about 20 minutes on Route 119 heading south, then a left onto a county road called CR7. It was mid-October. The trees on both sides had gone full color, orange and dead brown, and the leaves were coming down steady in the wind. The Hallorans had 2 kids, Mara, 7, and her brother Cole, who had just turned 5. The parents, Greg and Susan, were heading to a company dinner in Clarksburg and wouldn't be back until midnight. Before they left, Susan walked me through the house. Kitchen, living room, 1 bathroom on the first floor, 2 bedrooms and a hall bath upstairs, and a door off the kitchen that led down to the basement. She said it was mostly storage. Water heater, boxes, her husband's old woodworking tools. She said to leave the basement door alone. She said it twice. I figured she just didn't want the kids near the tools. The first hour was easy. I made the macaroni Susan had left on the stove. Cole ate half of his and declared he was done. Mara ate everything and asked for more. We watched a cartoon in the living room, and by 8:30 both kids were yawning. Cole was asleep in about 4 minutes. Mara stayed up a little longer, asking me questions. What was my favorite color? Did I have a dog? Normal stuff. I told her good night and pulled her door to. I went back downstairs, poured a glass of water, sat on the couch. That's when I heard it. A sound from under me, low and slow, something being dragged across a concrete floor. It lasted 4 or 5 seconds, then stopped. Not a dramatic sound. It didn't shout at you. It just sat in the back of your head and quietly refused to leave. I told myself it was the house. This one was probably 40 years old. Old houses settle and groan. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. But then I noticed the temperature had dropped in the kitchen. Not a lot, just enough that I'd registered it without meaning to. And there was a smell now that I was paying attention, damp and close. Wet cardboard and old sawdust seeping up through the gaps around the basement door frame. I told myself it was a cold, musty basement in October. I told myself the smell didn't mean anything. At 9:15, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Mara came down in her socks and sat next to me like she'd been invited. "You should go back up," I said. "I can't sleep," she said. "He woke me up." I looked at her. "Who woke you up?" She pointed at the basement door. "The man down there, he moves around at night." I kept my voice easy. "There's no one down there, Mara. It's just the house making noise." She looked at me the way kids look at you when they've already decided you're wrong. Patient, almost sorry for you. "He's probably awake by now," she said. That line stuck in my throat. I took her back upstairs, checked on Cole, still out cold. I left their doors open and went back downstairs. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the basement door. The damp smell was still there, stronger now, or I was just more aware of it. The overhead light had a slight flicker, the kind you stop noticing after 10 minutes but pick up again the moment you're on edge. The gap under the door was dark and still, no light from below, no sound. It was a hollow core door, cheap, painted white, scuffed at the bottom from years of shoes. Basic privacy knob, the kind you can open with a coin or a flathead screwdriver. I told myself I was going to check, feel stupid, and that would be the end of it. I put my hand on the knob and turned. The door didn't open, not stuck, locked from the inside. I stood there with my hand on the knob. Susan had said the door stuck, she had not said it locked. I stepped back, my heart was going fast, that specific rhythm where your body makes a decision before your brain catches up. I stood there staring at that white door and became very aware of how quiet the house was. The refrigerator hum, the wind moving through the trees along CR7, the distant creak of the upstairs hallway, everything ordinary, except for that locked door and the cold smell coming through it. I went to the living room. Susan had given me the login for their Ring doorbell before she left, told me to watch for any package deliveries. I pulled it up on my phone. The activity log showed motion at 7:52, before I'd arrived. I hit play. The driveway was empty in the footage, no one visible, but the log said motion detected at the side gate, the one that led around to the back of the house, toward the basement's exterior entrance. My mouth went dry. I called Susan's cell, straight to voicemail. I tried Greg, same thing, dinner, phones silenced. I texted both of them, "Call me when you get this, something's off." Then I stood in the living room and tried to think clearly. I heard it again. Not a house sound, not pipes, footsteps, deliberate and slow, moving across the basement floor directly under me. I felt a faint vibration through the soles of my shoes on the hardwood. Each step landed flat and even, unhurried, the way someone walks when they're not trying to get anywhere fast, just moving, just shifting weight from one foot to the other in the dark down there. Then they stopped right below where I was standing. The silence after that was worse than the sound. I stood completely still. I did not breathe through my nose. I just waited. The house held its breath with me. Nothing happened. The moment stretched out and had no end to it. I didn't wait any longer. I went upstairs. I got Mara up first. She was barely surprised, like some part of her had been expecting this. I carried Cole out of his bed, still half asleep. I got them both into the hall bathroom, the only interior room upstairs with a lock that actually worked. I pushed the bolt home. I sat both kids in the bathtub because it was away from the door. Mara didn't ask any questions. She just held her brother's hand in the dark. I called 911. I told the dispatcher I was babysitting on CR7 off Route 119. I told her there was someone in the basement and I couldn't reach the parents. She asked if the person had made any threats. I said no. She said they were sending a unit. Then we waited. Cole woke up all the way and started to cry, quiet and confused. Mara put her arm around him and shushed him the way kids do when they've been shushed themselves 1,000 times. I sat on the edge of the tub with my back to the door and texted Greg again. Then I heard the basement door open downstairs. Footsteps in the kitchen, slow, not panicked, not sneaking, just walking in the dark like they knew the layout. I heard someone brush past the kitchen table, a soft knock, chair legs shifting on linoleum, and then the footsteps moved into the living room. The floorboards under the carpet gave their low complaint with each step. I sat in that bathtub in the dark with 2 kids, and I did not make a sound. Cole had gone perfectly still against his sister's arm. The footsteps moved to the base of the stairs, stopped. I stared at the bathroom door. The bolt was a simple sliding type, the kind that costs $3 at a hardware store. The gap at the bottom showed nothing but darkness. I could hear my own pulse. 5 minutes passed, maybe less. It felt like a long time. Then headlights swept under the bathroom door from outside, the cruiser coming up the gravel driveway, the crunch of tires audible even from where we sat. The footsteps moved fast then, back through the kitchen, back down. The exterior basement door slammed hard enough to shake the floor. 2 Monongalia County deputies cleared the house in about 8 minutes. They found the basement door swinging open on its hinges, kicked from the inside. The exterior door at the back of the house behind the lattice was standing wide open. No padlock, no deadbolt, just a slide latch that could be lifted from outside with a thin piece of metal. Against the far wall behind Greg's old table saw, they found a sleeping bag, yellow, rolled up, next to it a backpack. Inside, 2 water bottles, a box of crackers, a prepaid phone with no contacts saved, and a folded piece of paper with the Halloran's address written on it in someone's handwriting. Not Greg's, not Susan's, they checked. Whoever it was had cleared the property before the deputies finished their sweep. Footprints in the mud behind the house led into the tree line. That was all they had. Greg and Susan came home to 3 cruisers in their driveway. Greg went pale when they showed him the sleeping bag. Susan kept apologizing to me, which was the wrong thing to focus on, but I understood why she needed to do it. She said the basement door had been sticking for weeks. She said she'd chalked the noises up to the water heater. She said the exterior latch had never occurred to her. I think it occurred to someone else. The deputies couldn't identify who it was from what they found. They ran the address on that piece of paper. It matched the house. That was all they had. They took the backpack, filed a report, and told the Hallorans to get a deadbolt on that exterior door. I don't know if anything else happened after that. I didn't go back. The last thing Mara said to me, standing in her kitchen at 1 in the morning while her parents talked to the deputies, was this. She tugged my sleeve. I bent down, and she said matter-of-factly, I told my mom about him. She said it was a dream. She said it the same way she'd said everything else that night, patient, calm, like she'd already accepted that the adults were never going to listen. I think about that a lot. The car had been behind me for 90 miles, and I hadn't seen it take a single exit. My name's Derek. I've driven long haul out of Kansas City for 11 years. I am not the kind of guy who spooks easy. You spend enough nights alone on empty highways, and you learn to tell the difference between your brain playing tricks and something that is actually wrong. This was actually wrong. It was a Tuesday in late October, around 2 in the morning. I was westbound on I-70 through central Kansas. Flat land, no trees, no hills, the kind of stretch where you can see headlights coming up behind you from 5 miles out. There was a thin ground fog sitting low in the fields on both sides of the road, not enough to affect visibility, just enough to make the dark feel closer than usual. I was hauling dry freight to a distributor in Salina, a run I'd done maybe 60 times. I just topped off at the Flying J back in Topeka. Coffee in the cup holder, CB turned low, radio off, just driving. Somewhere around the Wabansie County line, I first noticed the lights. Half a mile back, two white headlights steady in my driver's side mirror, set wide apart the way a newer sedan tends to sit, normal enough, people drive at 2 in the morning. I didn't think much of it. Then I passed the Maple Hill exit, the lights stayed behind me. Then I passed the Alma exit, still there. I nudged my speed up a little. I'm in a loaded Kenworth T680, I'm not racing anybody, but I brought it up to 68. The headlights stayed the same distance back. I slowed to 62, the headlights slowed too. That was the first thing that felt off. Most cars on a flat Kansas highway at 2 in the morning are doing 75 at minimum. This one had been sitting exactly where it was for a long time, not gaining, not falling back, just there. I picked up the CB and clicked over to channel 19. Any eastbound drivers on I-70 between Topeka and Junction City, what are you seeing out there? Static, then a voice, older trucker, gruff, somewhere east of me. Quiet out here, you got something. Maybe nothing, got a car behind me that's been pacing me for a while. What kind of car? I looked in the mirror, can't tell, headlights set wide, might be a sedan. He went quiet for a second. Stay on the interstate, he said, don't pull off until you see other trucks. I asked him why. He said just don't. I set the CB down. I've thought about that a lot since, the way he said it, not like he was joking, not like he was guessing, like he already knew something and didn't want to say it over open channel. His voice was flat, not unfriendly, careful, the way you talk when you're trying not to say too much. I kept driving. The next exit was County Road 177, nothing out there. No gas, no food, no lights, just a ramp bending off into flat, dark farmland. It came up and passed by on my right. The car didn't take it. 2 exits after that was Wamego. I had no reason to stop, but I thought about it. I let the exit approach. At the last second, I held my lane. The car held its lane, too. We'd been doing this for close to an hour. My coffee had gone cold. I was running the miles back in my head, trying to pin down exactly when I first saw those lights behind me. I kept landing somewhere west of Topeka. That was a long time to be behind one truck. I flicked on my 4-ways just to see what the car would do. Its 4-ways came on too. I turned mine off. A few seconds later, the car turned its off. My stomach dropped. That was not an accident, that was a response. I got back on the CB, asked if anyone was westbound near the Pottawatomie County line. A woman's voice came back, a driver I didn't know, said she was about 15 miles ahead of me. You see any cars sitting on the shoulder between here and there? I asked. Just past a white sedan sitting dark on the right shoulder, she said. No hazards, no lights, just sitting. I asked for the mile marker, she gave it to me. I watched my odometer. 5 minutes later, I passed that marker. The shoulder was empty. The white sedan was gone. I looked in my mirror, 2 headlights, same distance back, same width, just there. The only explanation I could put together was this: the car had been parked there waiting. It saw my headlights coming from miles out across that flat, open ground. It pulled out just before I reached it and slipped in behind me. Smooth enough that I never caught brake lights, never saw it move, just there in the mirror like it had always been there. That means it knew I was coming. That means it was waiting. I went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the temperature outside. Hands on the wheel, foot steady on the pedal. My phone showed 1 bar, normal for this stretch of 70 between mile markers 320 and 295. I could call 911, but what would I say? There's a car behind me, that's not a crime. Junction City was about 30 miles ahead. I knew there was a pilot travel center just off the interstate at exit 295. Fuel bays, a diner, usually 3 or 4 trucks on any given night. Bright overhead lights that flood the whole lot orange. I decided I was going to make it there. I didn't speed up, I didn't slow down. I kept the T680 at 64 and I watched the clock and I watched the mirror and I did not take any exits. About 20 miles out, the CB crackled. I hadn't keyed it, I hadn't said anything. The voice that came through wasn't the older trucker, it wasn't the woman, it wasn't anyone I'd heard that night. It said Derek. Just that, my name. I did not respond, my hand was on the handset and I did not respond, I just held it. The cab felt very small. The static after that single word seemed louder than it should have, the way silence gets loud when something has just broken it wrong. I sat there with the handset in my grip and watched the road and did not key the mic. Someone could have heard me on the channel and decided to mess around. I've told myself that. But I don't think I had used my name. I'd said any westbound drivers and asked about the car. I hadn't introduced myself. I'd had maybe 3 conversations on that channel all night. I was as certain as I could be. I had not said my name once. The lights behind me were still there, same distance, same width, patient as anything. I pressed down a little harder on the pedal. The pilot off exit 295 came up faster than I expected. I cut my signal on early, watching the mirror the whole time I moved toward the ramp. The ramp curved right, and for a few seconds the interstate disappeared behind me. I couldn't see whether anything was following. Those few seconds were the worst of the whole night. Then I was up and around and pulling into the lot, and the overhead lights hit the cab like something solid. The car did not follow me off the exit. I sat at the top of the ramp with my hazards on and watched the interstate through my driver's window for a full 2 minutes. One set of headlights went past without slowing. I couldn't tell if it was the car. I pulled into the lot and parked between 2 other semis, left the engine running, sat there for about 5 minutes just breathing, listening to the tick of the cooling metal around me, the distant drone of trucks out on the highway, the hum of the lot lights overhead. A Kansas Highway Patrol trooper was inside getting coffee. I walked up and told him what I'd seen. He didn't dismiss me. He took out a small notepad and asked what exit I first noticed the vehicle and approximately what time. When I mentioned the sedan sitting dark on the shoulder and then disappearing, he stopped writing. "You said white sedan," he said. "That's what the other driver told me." He nodded slowly. He said there had been 2 similar reports in the last 3 weeks on that same stretch of I-70. Both truckers, both westbound, both late at night. Neither one could get a plate. One of them had pulled off at a rest area and the car followed him in. It just sat at the far end of the lot with its lights off until he left. I filed a report. I gave the trooper the other driver's CB handle so he could try to reach her. He walked me back out to my truck. He looked out at the interstate for a moment. The fog had thickened in the hour since I'd come off it, sitting low along the edge of the lot, and the highway beyond was just darkness and the occasional sweep of passing lights. "You made the right call not stopping," he said. "Out there in the dark, you got no options." I delivered the load to Salina at sunrise. I called my dispatcher and told him I wanted a different route home. He didn't ask questions. He gave me a northern run-up through Nebraska instead. I checked the news for that stretch of I-70 over the following week. Nothing, no arrests, no public reports. The older trucker on Channel 19, I've tried to raise him a few times since. He hasn't come back. I still run I-70, it's my job, but I run it in daylight now whenever I can swing the schedule, and when I can't, I don't stop moving until I see a lit lot with other trucks. The road will sit empty all night and let you think you're alone on it. You're not always alone on it. The sedan had been behind me for 70 miles, and I had not seen it take a single exit. My name is Cal. I drive a 2019 Kenworth T680. I've been running US Route 50 across central Nevada for about 4 years. That stretch between Ely and Fallon, they call it the loneliest road in America. That name isn't cute, it's just accurate. Maybe 3 towns on the map the whole way, and none of them open past 9. This was a Tuesday in late October. I had a partial load of industrial pipe fittings headed to a distribution center outside Fallon. Delivery window was 6 in the morning. If I stopped overnight in Ely, I'd be cutting it close, so I kept rolling. My fuel gauge was sitting just above a quarter tank. I wasn't worried. The Chevron in Austin was about 40 miles ahead. I'd stopped there 100 times. I first noticed the headlights around mile marker 118, somewhere east of the Hickson petroglyph pullout. 2 white lights close together, sitting lower than a truck, a car, maybe a sedan. Hard to say more than that in the dark at distance. I didn't think much of it. Somebody else working a night schedule. Happens all the time out there. But by mile marker 90, they were still there, same gap, not closing, not falling behind. I tapped the brakes once, just enough to flash the running lights. The sedan didn't react, just held its position. I picked up the CB and ran a quick check on channel 19. Nothing for a minute. Then a voice came through, a little scratchy. Anyone westbound on 50 near Austin, heads up on a white car. Been parked at the rest stop outside Hickison for about 2 hours. Thought he was broke down, but he pulled out when you passed him. I keyed back, that's me. I got him behind me now, white sedan. That's him, couldn't see the plates. He had his lights off when he was parked. I set the handset down and checked the mirror again. His lights off, parked at a rest area for 2 hours in the dark. I tried to think of a reason somebody does that. Sleeping, maybe. Car trouble, coincidence of timing. I tried hard to make that work. The Chevron in Austin came up around mile marker 70. I pulled in. The lot was lit up orange under the overheads, one other semi on the far side. I topped off the tank, went inside, bought a coffee and a bag of peanuts, took my time. When I came back out, I looked west along Route 50 before climbing back up into the cab. About a quarter mile down the road, on the shoulder, 2 white headlights were sitting still. Just waiting. I stood there for a second with my coffee going cold. He hadn't pulled into the station, hadn't needed gas, hadn't needed a bathroom. He just stopped on the road and waited for me to come back out. I went cold, I mean that plainly. I went cold from the chest outward. I got back in the truck. I tried the CB again on channel 19. No answer. Different stretch of road now, different horizon. I was alone on the channel. I pulled out of the Chevron and got back on 50 heading west. The headlights fell in behind me within a minute. I want to be clear about something. Out there the road is straight for long distances. No intersections, no county roads going anywhere useful. 2 lanes across a high desert basin, mountains on either side. If you're in a car, your options are forward or back, that's it. So I told myself again, he's just driving west, same as me, innocent. Then I reached the signed turnoff for the Hickison Summit rest area, and I made a decision. I slowed and turned in. Small pull-out, gravel lot, a couple of pit toilets, a picnic table bolted to a concrete pad, nothing else. I looped around and parked so my headlights faced the entrance. I watched the highway. The white sedan slowed. It crept past the entrance at maybe 30 miles per hour. I could see its shape in the moonlight. Mid-size, American-looking, older, a dent or a dark patch on the front passenger door. No plate visible from that angle. It kept going west. I sat there for about 4 minutes, then I pulled out and continued west. At mile marker 47, the headlights came up behind me again. I don't know where he waited, there's nothing out there. No road, no pull-off I could identify, but he had gone dark somewhere and held still, and when I passed, he came back out. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't someone driving the same route. He had clocked me at the Chevron. He knew I was going west. He had gone ahead and waited for me to pass him again. I keyed the CB and just started talking. I gave my truck number. I said I was westbound on Route 50 between Austin and Fallon. I said I had a vehicle that had been following me for 60+ miles and it was doing things that weren't right. I gave the description I had. I asked for any trucker or anyone with a radio to come back to me. For a long moment, nothing. Then a woman's voice, calm, probably a dispatcher at some small outfit. She said she was copying me. Said she'd call Nevada Highway Patrol and relay my position. She told me to stay on the road and not stop. I wasn't planning to stop. I pushed the Kenworth up to 72. On that road at night with a load, that's about all I was comfortable doing. The headlights kept pace, not chasing, not dropping back, same gap the whole time, like he was on a tether. A minute later, a man came on channel 19. Said he was an owner-operator who'd driven that stretch about 3 weeks before on a Thursday night. A white car had followed him from Eureka all the way to Fallon. He pulled into the Walmart parking lot in Fallon and the car had stopped at the far end of the lot, killed its lights and sat there until a sheriff's deputy happened to pull in for something unrelated. Then it left. He said, I never got a good look at the driver. I didn't either. I tried in the mirror in those flat white beams, but the lights were angled just enough that there was nothing behind them except black. Fallon was still 30 miles out. At mile marker 23, there's a rest area on the westbound side, bigger than the Hickison pullout, covered picnic area, flush toilets, a water spigot, and at that hour I could see from a distance that 2 semis were parked there, running lights on. I made the decision fast. I hit my signal and pulled in. I pulled straight up alongside those two trucks and laid on the horn, two short bursts, enough to wake whoever was sleeping in those cabs. I watched the highway in my mirror. The white sedan came up to the entrance. It stopped. Its headlights went off. Not slowing down and passing, not pulling in, just stopped at the entrance in the dark, engine presumably still running. One of the truck doors opened. Big guy in a Carhartt jacket climbed down and walked toward my passenger side. I cracked the window and told him what was going on in about 30 seconds. He looked out at the road. He's still sitting there, he said. I know. He walked to the second truck and knocked on the door. A minute later, that driver was up too. The three of us sat there for 11 minutes. I watched the clock. The sedan didn't move. At minute 12, its lights came back on. It pulled forward and drove west. I gave it 5 minutes. Then I got back on the CB and told the woman my status. She said an NHP unit was westbound on 50 and would intercept me outside Fallen. She told me to drive straight to the Flying J on the north end of town and not stop anywhere else. That's exactly what I did. The Nevada Highway Patrol trooper was there when I pulled in. Gray Interceptor, lights off, parked near the diesel pumps. He'd been waiting a few minutes. He said he had not seen a white sedan on his drive-in from the west, but he said a car matching the description had been reported twice before in the past 6 weeks. 2 other drivers, both on Route 50, both heading west late at night. Neither had gotten a plate. Neither had been approached directly. He said it like that was supposed to be reassuring. He took my statement and gave me a case number. Said they were aware of it. That's all I got, aware of it. The delivery went fine. I was in the lot outside Fallen by 5:40 in the morning. The receiving crew came out right at 6. Normal morning. Cold, little bit of frost on the cab roof. Coffee from the office going down easy. I never saw the sedan again that night. I don't know where it went. I don't know what the driver wanted. But here's the part that stays with me. When I asked the trooper about the other 2 drivers, he said one of them, a regional haul guy out of Elko, had told him the car had already been parked with its lights off at a rest area ahead of him, before he ever noticed it in his mirrors. Ahead of him. Which means at some point it wasn't following at all. It was leading, getting out in front to see which way he'd go. I've thought about that a lot since then. I still run Route 50 when I have to. The loads are the loads, but I run it differently now. I check rest areas early. I note what's already parked there before I need to stop. I keep channel 19 live the whole time. And if I see headlights that hold the same distance for more than 30 miles, I don't wait to see what happens next. I just start talking on the radio. Somebody's always out there listening if you start talking early enough.